I don't know why मैले अस्ति हाम्रो पहिला एक्चुअली अर्को एपिसोडमा हाम्रो लयर आउँदा पनि हाम्रो कुरा गरेको थियो डिभोर्सको चाहिँ
हजुर
मैले चाहिँ नेप्लिज कपलको चाहिँ
हजुर
डिभोर्स रेट चाहिँ अस्ट्रेलियामा चाहिँ एकदम हाई देखेँ कम्पेयर टु द कपल्स हु आर लिभिङ इन नेपाल
हजुर
है सो इज द्याट ट्रु
I think it is much more common here than
Yeah.
it would be if it were in Nepal. Yes,
Why do you think what's the main cause of this?
it is a very complicated thing. But at the same times, I think in Nepal there are certain systems in place which are something you cannot see. Okay, the systems are rules and traditions that have been passed on for generations, and it's also about the society, because हाम्रो नेपाली कम्युनिटीमा सोसाइटीले के भन्छ इट्स अ भेरी बिग थिङ when someone comes to Australia as a couple, I think that सोसाइटीले के भन्छ अथवा त्यो जुन ट्रेडिसन नेपालमा बााउन्ड्रिजहरू हुन्छ त्यो अलि गेट्स ओपन सो आई डोन्ट थिङ्क इट्स नट द्याट नेपालमा यो प्रब्लमहरू हुँदैन नेपालमा चाहिँ त्यो दबाएर राखेको प्रब्लमहरू चाहिँ यहाँ आउँदा एक्सपोज हुन्छ सो इट्स लाइक
राम्रो पनि हो त्यो
yes, I think there is a positive side too, because I do think that even in Nepal there are a lot of unhappy couples who are together not by their wish, because they're scared about what the society will think, what their friends will think, how they will be treated, and there are other financial reasons as well. When people come to Australia, both men and women, they both earn, they all have their financial agency, they have their own standing. In Nepal, for instance, it is very unfortunate, but the employment ratio between the men and women is drastically different. So lot less women work in Nepal. So what that means is they're dependent on the men. Which means there's this fear that if I were to divorce, I'll be on my own, and because the society will the way the patriarchal society in Nepal is, I'll be blamed, and maybe I won't get a job. So out of that fear, that the conversation of divorce is something that does not usually come in mind. Whereas when they come to Australia, I think that thing changes, because both are financially dependent, and I think over time, as they spend time together, their priorities change, and because in Australia everyone works, and sometimes I think it's the time that they cannot spend together also leads to misunderstanding between couples. That's one category. There's another category where unfortunately very young couples, they've been married before coming to Australia. Some of them are very young. Some now I think in Nepal they've changed the rule where you have to be 20 years to
21.
register. But I've seen it in the past, 18 years old getting married, and coming here. When you're 18, I think you haven't had a chance to understand what a relationship is. Right, the man or a woman you're marrying might be the first, a date or partner you ever had, and then coming to Australia, being exposed to the culture here, and I think that has a big influence on how the couple see. Sometimes they feel like maybe they were not made for each other, and which is not a wrong thing. I do say that if you're not happy in a relationship, it is not a sin to separate. But I always recommend, when couples separate, they do in mutual understanding, because the impact of that, in the long term, will be good for both of you.
Cool, thank you. What do you think, what's the most common challenges while going through a divorce legally?
I think for Nepali, before legally, I think it is getting to that conversation of having a divorce, right? Because I think it's like a taboo subject. So you're married, because there are so many cultural things. How will we talk to our parents? How will we explain to them? The legal challenges is basically not understanding. So Nepalमा चाहिँ कसुर देखाउनु पर्ने हुन्छ. So fault divorce छ. अस्ट्रेलियामा चाहिँ there is a no fault divorce. अनि I think अर्को misconception चाहिँ you can just apply for a divorce and you get a divorce. त्यसो हुँदैन. In Australia, you have to be separated for 12 months. So I think even in Australia, they give you an opportunity. So 12 महिना भित्रमा, if you can get together, अनि divorce जानु परेन नि त. And I think that is why there is that requirement. अर्को कुरा चाहिँ if let's say you've been married for less than 2 years, you need to go and see a counselor, and the counselor has to give a certificate which you then use as evidence when you apply for a divorce.
Okay.
And another thing is divorce is done by a lawyer, and it is encouraged that you seek a lawyer's help.
Okay, thank you very much. मलाई ठ्याक्कै तपाईँले त्यो भन्ने बित्तिकै मलाई एकजना लयर हुनुहुन्छ क्या हाम्रो नेपाली कम्युनिटीकै, लाइफ इज स्योर गेट अ डिभोर्स भन्नुहुन्छ कि उहाँको मोटो नै उहाँसँग एकदमै धेरै डिभोर्स क्लाइन्ट्सहरू आउँछ भन्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो होइन. डु यु थिङ्क इज द्याट मोरली जस्ट तपाईँको ओपिनियन मात्र, आम नट सेइङ लाइक हुन्छ नि वाट इज राइट वाट इज रङ, डु यु थिङ्क इट्स गुड त्यो हुन्छ नि लाइफ इज स्योर गेट अ डिभोर्स भन्दै आफूलाई प्रमोट गर्नु मोरली?
Look, I can't comment on that particular lawyer's thing, but what I can say is I would not personally do that.
Exactly.
I would not say life is short, get a divorce, because if somebody needs a divorce, our job is to educate that we are against family violence. So if there is a family violence, you should seek help. You should see a counselor and maybe learn about you don't want to stay in a relationship where there is family violence, but we do not want to make a divorce a fashionable thing, right? Because that can have a detrimental effect, and I'm talking from the perspective of a Nepali community.
Yep.
But in saying that, look, a lot of time the clients that come to us, they've already been through, they've already had this conversation, or they've had enough, and they're in a position where they come to us for a conclusion.
Okay. After they make a decision.
Yeah, the climax bara gaisakeko huncha praya गरेर. They just want a conclusion. A conclusion is a formal ending of the relationship, which is divorce.
Yeah.